Hello, welcome to Crow's Corner. I'm Jenny. This is part 2 of making a Regency Spencer, so if you haven't seen part 1, go check that out first. If you're new here, hello and welcome. Glad you're joining me. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep in touch with what I'm doing. In the last episode, I talked about how I wanted to make a Regency Spencer for the Jane Austen festival that I went to in June, and it was such a pleasant festival at the Heritage Village in Cincinnati, Ohio. So in the last video, I showed you how to use a previous garment to create a pattern, and I upcycled a linen skirt that I found on Amazon for really cheap. So in this episode, I will be showing you how I assemble and stitch everything together. Almost all of it will be hand sewn, with the exception of one little part that I use the machine for. Will be hooded and lined, except for the sleeves. The sleeves will not be lined. And there are a few clips where I was actually sewing in the vehicle as I was traveling for vacation. So it's very few of them, but please excuse if they're not quite the quality that I would like them to be. This is the garment that I took inspiration from and created the pattern from. It is something that I made a few years back out of blue velvet. And here's the new pattern for the new Spencer. And I did end up, again, I cut out the lining in white and the regular part of the jacket in green fabric. Here's where I'm sewing in the car, so again, please excuse. Take the side back panel and line it up right side out, or right side in, excuse me, and then I pin that together. And then I end up sewing this with a running back stitch. I kind of actually combine it. It's like every other stitch, I will do a back stitch. And if I didn't say that correctly, I think it's the back center panel lined up with the side back panels. That's what this is. And I do the same on both sides. Again, I start by tying off a little knot, and then I do a running stitch with a back stitch every 2 or 3 running stitches. And don't worry, I won't bore you with every single stitch I make. Although I do have to say that the rhythm of hand stitching is quite comforting to me. Here it is pulling this open, and that's what it looks like for the back and center and back side panels. Now this is the dart in the front panel, one of the front panels. There are 4 darts total, 2 on each side. And I match up where I want the dart to come together and find where I want the top of the dart to be. And of course, this dart is going on the inside of the panel of fabric. And I do a running back stitch here as well. it is, the dart, and when you flip this over, you'll see it's a nice flat little dart that is going to create some shape in this garment. Now I'm connecting the side back panel to the front panel at the side seam, and again, right sides together. And again, it's a running and back stitch here. Now this is the shoulder, so it's hard to see, but actually it's right sides together, and the shoulder from the front panel meets the shoulder from the back center panel. And there's a right side and a left side as well. So you match those up, right sides together, and do a running stitch. And this is the sleeve, and I just fold it over on itself and sew up one side of it. You can see how they turn out here. They're both sleeves. One end is really narrow for where your wrist is, and one is where the shoulder's going to be, and it will be gathered together. And here's the bodice part, the sort of back centerpiece combined with the side panels and the front panels. And those are the armholes. And you can see the darts, 2 in each front panel. Now these front panels cross over in the front. You can see here how that happens. And I did the exact same thing in white for the lining. This is some white cotton that I had. And then you will face this wrong sides together, I guess, and they'll fit inside of each other with the regular one. Now these are the cuffs for the sleeves, and what I'm doing here is a rolled hem. So I make a very small fold and kind of crease that down and pin it in place. This kind of a hem makes it a really delicate finished edge to something like the cuff of a sleeve. And what you do is you go through the bottom of the folded over edge, cross over to the top, make a tiny, tiny little prick of a stitch, and you do that a few times, and then you pull the thread and it rolls it over. I didn't quite do this very neatly. You can still see a little bit of the raw edge hanging out. I should have probably folded that over a little bit more narrow, but oh well. And there it is. You work your way all the way around and turn it right side out, and you have a nice little rolled hem at the end of your sleeve. I think it's a very delicate hem. This one whole sleeve, and I'm about to show you how to attach it to the bodice. So with the right side of the sleeve against the right side of the bodice armhole, I take that seam on the sleeve and match it up to the side seam. So the seam will be under your arm, not on top. And then I'm going to proceed to pin all the way around the armhole until I get to the top, which is where I will gather the extra fabric that's in the sleeve. Actually, I won't be gathering it, I will be folding it into little pleats. Okay, it's a little bit difficult to see here, but I've made my way all the way around the sleeve hole and the armhole, and you can see there's some extra fabric on the sleeve, which is on the inside of this circle, and I'm just going to start folding this over into little pleats. And make sure when I do the other sleeve that I fold the pleats in the exact same direction so they match up on both sides. Like either toward the back or toward the front, whichever you like. And this is actually my mom was modeling this. I was on vacation with her, and so I asked her to try this on, and she was so sweet and did this. So the sleeve's a little bit long on her. And this is the hood, and you start by, this is a little hard to describe, but I equally divided up this edge into 4 sections. And then I'm going to work on the middle 2 sections only, and I divide each of those into halves. And then of those 4 sections in the middle, I divide those into halves again. So now I know exactly where I'm going to be folding the pleats for this hood. And you start by matching the first pin with the next, and remove that. And then I just use a pin to kind of hold it in place. And again, you match those 2 pins and remove that. And I'm matching the next edge. So all of these pleats are stacked on top of each other, and they should all be approximately the same width. And so I did the same thing on the opposite side, and then you want to kind of meet them together in the middle. And then you will fold it in half, and those 2 halves will meet. But here you can just see like how the pleats kind of look on the hood. This is the back of the hood. And those bottom 2 pieces that are hanging down will come together and form a seam as well. Right there, that's where the seam will be. So you can see here, I'm going to fold this over now because they do need to all be stacked together. Just kind of straightening out the pleats a little bit before I sew. And you're going to sew, I kind of sew 2 little pleats together at a time, but then I always catch the previous pleat in, so it's like doing back stitches between each pleat, if that makes sense. And you do this on both sides of the long bit of fabric that hangs down the back of the hood. So you go in 1 pleat and out the other, and then the next time you go in that last pleat and then into another pleat until you've made your way all the way across. And then do this on the other side as well. And then you're going to do a running back stitch all the way down the back seam. So you have these 2 pieces of fabric sandwiched together. And then the final thing was to stitch the top pieces together. And then fold it right side out. You see that back seam that's going to go down the back of the head, and then that is sort of at the peak of your head. The little pleats are spread out like a fan. Now I'm going to attach the hood to the bodice. So right sides together, that center seam matches up with the center seam on the back center panel. And then you just pin it all the way out to the end on both sides. And do a running back stitch all the way down. Leave a little, maybe half inch, that I do not sew down. Again, it's being modeled on my mom, so thanks to her. But and the reason I leave about a half inch is because I want to roll that edge around the hood inward so that I can line it and sew in the raw edge. You can see there how I went all the way around and folded that in about a half inch. And I placed the white lining in, wrong sides together with its edge also folded in, and went all the way around the edge and pinned it together. You can see how it neatly lines up. And this is just to show you that, if you open up the bodice, how it all looks. And then I will be placing the wrong sides together again of the lining that I made. I'm going to fold down the top edge all the way across and pin that in place, kind of overlapping the raw edge of the bottom of the hood and all the way out to the sides of the front panels. And then I match up the seams and the armholes and pin those together as well. Now this is a very tricky sort of stitch here. I think this is called a blind hem stitch, but it might also be closely related to a fell stitch. So you run your needle through sort of the channel of the folded edge of your lining, and then when you come out, you take the smallest little stitch, little prick stitch, or running stitch through your fashion fabric, and then you go back to the lining and repeat. And I go all the way around sort of the finished edge of the hood and the front panels doing this stitch. So you have a very clean edge. You can see here this is completely lined all the way around the hood and the bodice. And I just quickly did some running back stitches around the edges of the armholes. Raw edges inside of garments like this is completely normal in historical fashion. I also added these little ties. This is going to hold it together, and I put it underneath the armpit of one side and then on the edge of the bodice on the other side, since this is going to cross over, and then they will tie together. So I haven't finished the, you can see there the edge of the front panel because I hadn't really tried it on well and didn't know if I would need to make any adjustments. And it turns out I did need to adjust it. That is the width between these two pins is how much this needs to be taken in on both sides. So I decided instead to pick out these darts. And instead, I want to gather them. I think I like the gathering the way it looks better. But I had to pick out all of the darts and adjust this. And you can see here I just ran two lengths of stitches of just running stitches, and it's loose on one end, knotted on the other. And then you can grab these two threads and you pull and it gathers it up. And if you've done your stitches with a similar length, then you get a really nice little gather. And after you tie this off, it will be sewn up in like the hem at the bottom, or the band that I'm going to put on here. So that's what I ended up doing instead of the darts. And I did end up then finishing that edge on the bodice that I hadn't finished before. And then I took the waistband of the old skirt, put right sides together, and sewed. Actually, this is the only thing I used my machine for. I just wanted this to be on there really well, and I was actually running out of time for the Jane Austen Festival. So I pinned that in place and then used my machine, went all the way along the bottom edge of that, and then you flip it right side out. Or excuse me, yeah, right side out. So here's the stitch from the sewing machine all the way along, and then you flip this down and then tuck that back side under, and then I ended up using a whip stitch to hold that in place. And that is the finished garment. Funnily enough, I never did end up wearing this at the Jane Austen Festival. I took it with me and it was so hot. There was just no way that I could have worn this thing, even though it's linen, even though it's very lightweight. I just couldn't handle it. It was incredibly humid. So here are some pictures of me wearing it at home. And it was so humid even when I took this video that the camera was fogging up. But I still think it turned out really great. I might embellish it a little bit more later on, but for now, I hope you enjoyed that. And thank you so much for watching. And make sure you put a comment down below and hit that like button. Thank you.